St. Timothy's Episcopal Church and parish priest Father Bernie Lindley are institutions in the southern Oregon coastal town of Brookings. For years, the church has been known as a place where the community's poor, downtrodden, and homeless can get a hot meal, medical services, including COVID testing and vaccinations, to receive their mail, and even use as an address in order to register to vote.
From the KCIW Newsroom, I'm Lori Gallo-Stoddard, and you've probably heard about the lawsuit the Episcopal Diocese of Oregon and Father Bernie Lindley of St. Timothy's Church filed against the city of Brookings. The suit says the city violated St. Tim's First and 14th Amendment rights when it passed an ordinance limiting the number of meals it could serve at its property. This is a story that's gained national attention because of the constitutional implications regarding separation of church and state, and because it also has everything to do with the work St. Tim's does with the hungry and unhoused. It's unleashed a local tsunami of public passion on both sides of the issue.
Even if you're not familiar with the specific details surrounding this ongoing story of St. Timothy's Episcopal Church, the situation surely won't be too much of a surprise, if not at least a disappointment. As reporter Mike Thornton put it in KFUG Community Radio's coverage of the story, pushing for the rights of the powerless can often lead to conflicts with the powerful. October 25th, 2021, the Brookings City Council, which consists of members Ron Hedenskog, the mayor, and councilors Brad Alcorn, Ed Schreiber, John McKinney, and Michelle Morosky, unanimously voted to limit how many days a week local churches can feed the hungry. The kickoff to this story, despite other previous oddities and instances you can hear in KCIW's report of the St. Timothy's Episcopal Church versus the city of Brookings, sampled in the intro for this report. But this story won't be about the latter. Rather, we'll be taking a deep look into the organization that has defied this ordinance. They stuck to their word. A Wild Rivers Outpost article by Jessica St. R. Andrews the day after this unanimous decision reads from Father Bernie Lindley, "When we are fined for being in non-compliance, that very day we will be filing a suit against the city for violating our constitutional right to freely exercise our religion. We have the support of our bishop and our entire diocese." Since then, KFUG Community Radio and Redwood Voice have closely been monitoring the situation as it unfolds, the former releasing coverage on the ongoing developments. And just as he promised, January 28th, 2022, the church willfully broke this targeted law by continuing to serve food to the needy population that they're dedicated to. Followed, of course, by the spark of a lawsuit to fight back the city's inexplicable need to limit how often a church can feed the city's people. The KFUG and Redwood Voice crew, fascinated and hopeful by the human urge to defy unjust legalities, decided to take a field trip up to Brookings, cameras and recorders in hands, to see exactly what was going on for ourselves, nearly every day in this house of God. Upon our arrival, signs decorated the place leading anyone interested in vaccinations, first, second, booster, whatever you're seeking, to the inside, where plenty were available. And I do mean to anyone interested. This was where I ended up getting my third vaccine, the crew making it a quick and easy process. And while I was getting poked with a needle, others manned the kitchen getting meal bags and coffee ready for those who would start lining up within the hour. A well-oiled machine of giving that asked for nothing in return, except, of course, to rightfully express their religious freedom and keep doing what they were doing, despite what the city government tries doing to illegalize their actions. During our initial visit, we met St. Timothy's very own Anne, Louise, and Debbie, workers and advocates for the church, splitting up the tasks that needed doing.
Hi, I'm Ann Gresham. I'm a volunteer RN. I retired from 26 years of school nursing in Southern California about 2 years ago and moved up here to the community, and I just felt like I needed to do my part to help end this pandemic.
My name is Louise Abbott. And I guess my title here at St. Timothy's is advocate. What I mean is that I am working here at St. Timothy's and able to work with the vaccination clinic here. I also have worked with the testing clinic as well, and now I'm actually going to be working with the community kitchen.
My name's Debbie. So for about the past year, I've been a volunteer here, and I cook every other Saturday, and I also help out at another church every other Tuesday. So we get food from the food bank, and we make home-cooked meals, and we generally serve anywhere from 40 to 60 people. We have some homeless people, we have families that come in, we have a lot of seniors that don't have enough funds to buy food, so they come here for a delicious hot meal. And yeah, so it's just really rewarding to be able to do it, and the camaraderie between all of us cooking is a lot of fun, so we all enjoy it.
So I'm new. I'm still learning, making sure that all of the doses are correct with the different kinds of medication that we're offering here, the Pfizer and the J&J and the Moderna. We greet people as they come in and ask them if they're here for the COVID vaccine, and we have people that help put it in the computer, and then we determine with them what medication they'll receive. And then it's really been my heart to help with the kids, especially because I miss that part of my job.
So what happens here at St. Timothy's is that we saw that there was this need in the community for not only testing but also vaccination for COVID, since it's really hit our community very hard. And so what St. Timothy's has done is that it has worked with the Oregon Health Authority in order to be able to provide vaccinations to our community as well as testing facilities. So in this part of the building, what we do is provide vaccinations. So we have all three vaccinations available, the Moderna, Pfizer, and the J&J or Janssen vaccination. And we also have pediatric Pfizer for the children from who are 5 and older. So we provide both the first, second, and booster vaccinations as are needed by the community. So we provide these services here on Wednesdays from noon to 3, and also Saturdays from 10 to 3 for vaccinations.
It slowed down a lot with COVID. There was a lot less people coming, and but we continued serving, and it's picking up again. So like I said, when we first started, or during COVID, it was maybe 20, 25, 30 people, and now it can get all the way up to 60 people. And we get, a lot of seniors that come. We have some that drive together, and we even have some people in the community that work in different businesses, and they just don't have enough money to have enough food, so they come here for hot meals.
I believe we've been giving about 20 shots. Our vaccine clinics are on Wednesdays from 12 to 3, and then on Saturdays we reserve the 10 to 12 spot for children, but if an adult needs to come in at that time, we'll give them their vaccine, and until 3.
That seems like a pretty good number to me, pretty successful. Do you think so?
I think so. I think it's worth it. Every little bit to help our community. When I look in the community and I see that the numbers were going up, and that for me it was personally my stepping out into the community. I've been one that has been going into stores quickly, coming out and ordering my groceries online, and I just felt like I needed to step out and be part of this process. And if I can help save a life, then more the better.
When we first started doing vaccinations at St. Timothy's, we were partnering with other groups such as FEMA and the CalOR flight people, and we were doing events primarily at the high school and some other places as well. And then we saw the need was necessary just to have a place here where people could come to us at their, hopefully at a better schedule, because those were events that were only every few weeks, and now people can come twice a week if whenever they need during those times to get a vaccination.
It makes it more accessible for the people you're trying to help.
It's much more accessible for the community to be able to do that.
So one of the things I heard is part of the reason that St. Timothy's is doing this is because there really wasn't anybody else in the community that was doing it.
Well, I wouldn't say not everybody else, because, for example, you can get vaccinations at Fred Meyer. You used to be able to get vaccinations at Weimar. and also Rite Aid will provide vaccinations, but those vaccinations are really very limited. They have limited capability due to lack of staffing. Bimart closed their whole pharmacy, so that's no longer available. So we are filling a need to help provide more accessibility for the community, but we're not the only place they're vaccinating.
Right.
But I'm just saying it's more difficult to get vaccinations to other places.
So we come in ahead of time. We get a delivery of food on Tuesdays from the food kitchen. We get fresh produce, breads, cheese, meats. So we come in ahead of time to figure out what our menu is going to be, see what we have available to cook. So we plan it ahead. Today we're having a chicken taco casserole. We have chicken and tortillas, and we've got beans and bread and dessert. So we just see whatever's come in from the food bank, basically, is what we use. Yeah, you definitely have to, you can't just come in here on the day you're serving and think that you're going to plan a meal. You need to see what you have to work with ahead of time.
That must make it a little interesting.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and then we have the different people that help come in at different times to see what, because we cook on, today's Saturday, we cook Saturdays, we cook Mondays, so the different groups are coming in at different times to see what they're going to have available to cook.
I came here partly because my neighbor, Kathy, is Father Bernie's mom, and she has always been helpful to me as a neighbor, and she didn't push me into this. She just offered it as an opportunity. And I was reading in a magazine the other day, and I'm not going to say it correctly probably, but they mentioned a Jewish proverb that there are angels that go before us who light the way to show that we are the face of God. And so that kind of really touched me, and it really solidified in me that I needed to help.
In terms of the clientele, if you're talking about people who are unhoused, yes, we are available for those people as well, but we are available to everybody in the community. So anybody in the community can come and get a vaccination. But it is easier, let's say, the ease of getting here is available more for people than I would say other places. And for example, people can arrange with their physician to make an appointment and get a vaccination. But again, if you don't have a local physician, it may be difficult to do that. I think that hopefully the listeners will understand that St. Timothy's is called to serve their neighbor. This is that we feel it's our mission, and we not only provide vaccinations, testing, feeding, showers, whatever, that we're here to really help the community. And I hope people will understand that is what we are called to do, and hope they understand that what we're doing is for the good of the community.
That I know that people say that the homeless cause issues. In the year that I've been here serving, I've never seen any problem, no issue. They're polite, they're grateful to have the meal, and I've not seen any problems myself whatsoever. And then just the diversity of people that we have coming in, it's definitely not just homeless people. We have, there's a merchant in town that has a business, and it just doesn't bring in enough money. He can run the business, but he's short, to be able to have food, so he's here all the time. Getting a hot meal. And then we have other things we can give out. We've got noodles and things that can help them at home. People that can take food home and prepare it. The homeless don't generally have any way to prepare food, so they just take the hot meal. But if they do have a means to prepare food, we've got food we can give them to make at home.
Do you think people in this community realize that it's not just homeless people?
No, I don't think they do. They would have to come here and see the different seniors that come in together regularly, and they'd have to see it for themselves. I'm sure they assume it's all homeless.
I can understand how some people would be concerned. A lot of people, I would say that the fallout comes from my understanding, from the fact that there are not only do the vaccination clinic, but we do the community kitchen also provides meals. We provide meals for not just unhoused people, but other people in the community can come. Anybody can come and get a meal here. But we do try to provide meals for unhoused people who may not have food elsewhere. We also provide showers. We provide, there's a core group that works here that also tries to work with people to get them any kind of needs that they might have, try to get them, if they need some paperwork done, if they try to get them as much need as help as they can. And so this church then is trying to do all of that. And so that means that there are some people around who may be unhoused or who may not be looked like everybody else, you know. And so there's a fear of the unknown. There's a fear of the stranger. And I see that in people, and I can understand that. But I think we need to understand that these people are just, they're our brothers and sisters. And so if a brother or sister is in need, we need to try to help them. And so I think that if people could see beyond the initial strangeness and the fact that they don't know these people and understand that they're really human beings just like everybody else, I think that the political turmoil would be a little less. But I can understand it's hard sometimes for people to really understand, look beyond the surface and understand that we're just dealing with person to person here.
And speaking of the political turmoil that's come from the situation, we finally had a chance to speak one-on-one with Father Bernie Lindley of the church on many things, really, but especially on the impending lawsuit and what comes next.
Can you talk about what St. Timothy's has been doing over these years?
So I've referred to it as radical hospitality. Wherever you are, wherever you've come from, whatever you've been doing, you're welcome here. Now, when you come, though, you have to be respectful. You can't get into fights. You can't cause problems. You can't intimidate, bully other people. You have to, certainly one of our core things is to treat people with dignity and respect. And that's a core teaching within our church. You treat all people with dignity and respect. So we expect that from the people who are our guests. But other than that, whatever they've been going through, we want them to come and find some sort of stability here with us. And we want to be able to add to that stability, whatever it is. And it might just be teeny tiny, small amounts, but we want it to be just a little bit better. If we can just make a little bit of an improvement in somebody's life, then we want to be able to do that. We welcome people to come and use our shower if they have no access to hygiene. Certainly they use our restroom, open Wi-Fi so that they can access the internet. Coffee, one of the most welcoming things you can do for somebody is offer them a cup of coffee. Mail, people who do not have a home, where are they going to get their mail? So they get their mail here at the church. And we help them enroll into the Oregon Health Plan so that they can have access to health care. Oftentimes people have lost their birth certificates, so we help them acquire that. Help them to be able to get ID cards through the DMV or driver's licenses, as the case may be. Sometimes people aren't homeless yet, but they're precariously, they're on the cusp there. And so we'll help them with their rent. There's no applications. Nobody has to fill out an application. Nobody has to fill out a form. Nobody has to prove they're worthy. And it's not just me. We have a team of people. But I'll have a conversation with somebody that'll last at least 20 minutes, perhaps longer, to figure out, well, this is what you're going through, but what's the best course of action? Maybe a hotel room isn't really what you need. Maybe what you need is transportation. Maybe what you need is to be reunited with your family. Maybe what you need is help being able to acquire a job. Because we don't want to just put a Band-Aid on something and just say, okay, go on your way. We want to be able to make these high-impact changes. It's a pretty remarkable thing that we're able to do. So it's with our partners, really, that we're able to do more, and our extremely dedicated volunteer base. So just to be clear, I don't do any of that. I don't prepare a meal. I'm not a primary care provider. I don't give anybody shots when we do COVID shots. I don't even when it's time to test people for COVID-19. I don't do the sampling. I've done data entry and stuff like that, but it's our volunteer base that does all that work. And those things start out gradual, of course. Like our feeding ministry. It started out 1 day a week and eventually went to 6 days a week for a short while, and now it's back to 4 days a week. So, all these things kind of start out small and then they change over time, and sometimes there's not nearly as many people coming in for 12-step meetings right now because of the COVID restrictions. So they went virtual in a lot of cases, and so plus we have pretty rigorous requirements for when people come into our building, and so some 12-step groups want to have more autonomy when it comes to that sort of thing. So so they moved their meetings to other places temporarily, I'm sure that when this pandemic finally gets over, that we'll be able to host more 12-step meetings again, because that's something that weighs on me, because when those meetings went other places and disbanded, that's the opposite of my hospitality philosophy. We don't want anybody to feel like they got to go somewhere else, and certainly that includes the people who live in our neighborhood. We don't want them thinking, oh my goodness, I need to sell my house and move somewhere else because this is too chaotic for me. We don't want anybody to think that, or for somebody to think, well, my property value just tanked because nobody's going to want to buy my house when I do sell because now they got to live across the street from a circus.
We also had an opportunity to interview some of the neighbors that live just beside St. Timothy's, who preferred to be unnamed and unshown in our video, in order to get a clearer idea of what the people of the city, not just its council, thought of the whole ordeal. The answers were very interesting, to say the least.
So you said you don't mind them feeding the homeless and the work they do?
No.
What is it? What's the issue? What do you experience?
When they let the homeless live there and they're unattended, then that's when the problems start. Right. We've had some with no clothes. We've had people knocking on doors. We've had people stealing mail and nothing being done about it. That just isn't the church's fault. That's also the police department's fault. But when they stopped letting everybody live there, that problem went away.
So is that separate from the feeding and the vaccinations and things, or is that also part?
No, that was all together in the beginning.
Okay.
And that's when the city stepped in and said, you can't do this.
Okay.
We're going to have to shut this down.
Prior to the vaccination stuff, and that's all great. I mean,
we love it when our
community,
when our churches reach out. Yeah. Now, this church straight down, the Presbyterian Church feeds, never had one issue with the people camping there, living there. And we know there's got to be a place for them. But you can't put them in a neighborhood that is established and let them just do whatever they want. We had a lot of cars and people living in their cars, and there was a lot of trouble. A lot of dog fights, people fighting. You can go back and check all the police reports when Pastor Bernie wasn't there to control the issue. And so you can't expect the neighborhood then to step in and take care of everything. We love the idea of the churches feeding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
other
we're called
churches
to do
are feeding
that.
and they're not having the problem. And they're not having the police department there. That's the problem.
And I just don't think they should advertise for everybody to come here.
Is that what they do? I don't know. I haven't seen any. I don't know.
That is what's on the agenda.
But you know what? When you don't hear it from the horse's mouth, it's just hearsay.
Oh yeah, exactly. Definitely.
I know they're suing the city over this issue.
Yeah.
And
and Pastor Bernie's awesome. He's an awesome man.
Right.
He takes care of the people. The church is taking care of the people, feeding them. That's all good. That's not a problem. It's never been a problem. It's only been a problem when they're left unattended. Right. And
when they
escalate.
bring more in, that we can't.
And they shouldn't be able to live on the property if there isn't going to be someone.
Help me understand then. So my understanding was that the city voted to limit the days of the week that St. Timothy's could provide food. Right.
But it's prior to that, they were living here.
Okay.
They could have so many.
So in other words, the city stepped in and just shut it down.
Right.
And then they went on from there.
Okay.
So that's where I.
So the issue isn't having people here every day getting fed. It's just that they stay here and cause problems.
Not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
All right.
And and the thing is, anyone that's going to be there to be fed, you're not going to want to. They don't normally. They come up and down the street, but they don't normally mess with anything. And I think we should feed our hungry. That doesn't bother me. But sometimes what happens is you give an inch and we get them. They take a mile. Sure. And I'm not saying that just with the homeless. I'm talking about in general. And then things get escalated, and it's like just shut it down because we have to start from scratch somewhere. Yeah. but that's just.
But as far as feeding the homeless, no, we're behind that.
Yeah, people need to eat.
Feeding our homeless.
Do you feel that the Brookings City Council went too far initially then with stopping everything?
No, because nothing was happening until they did.
Right.
Nothing was happening. What do you mean? I'm sorry.
The people were still living there.
Gotcha.
The things were still being stolen. Drunkenness was happening up and down the street. Dog fights, people naked at doors, pounding on doors. So until they shut them down, it didn't get quiet.
Right.
Wow.
And so I think
they had to go to an extreme to get back on a playing field.
And I don't think both of them are right, and I don't think both of them are wrong. There's a happy medium in the middle, just like anything else.
I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I think they were nice about keeping it somewhat picked up and that, but that wasn't the issue. The issue was people drinking and causing fights, and a lot of it's mental illness, and you can't control that.
Right.
You know, and so there has to be a safe place for that, and not in a neighborhood of a bunch of people that are just trying to live.
We're all getting older. When we grew up, we had on this street, not including the apartments at the end, we had 34 kids here
playing on the street.
We would even get with the city. They never would let us block off to do a block party.
Do a block
but
party.
we had kids and we all did stuff together. We would go over to the park and have a ball game. I mean, it was great growing up, raising our kids here.
Yeah.
And now our grandkids, are here.
Living with us, and we love that. And it needs to be a safe family place to raise your kids. You've got a park, and you don't want to go into the park and not know when you turn the corner what you're going to find. And that's what we were finding, is they weren't just sleeping on premises, they were sleeping right in the, and so, the city came in and started clearing things.
Well, the city owns the park now. When we grew up, it was state park.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
That was state of Oregon park.
Okay.
And the city took it over, and it's been completely turned over.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the city council. How did this start? And what happened?
I always talk about the car camping because that's how this current thing really started. When Jake was the mayor, he said he noticed that there was an ordinance, or not an ordinance, but a state statute that would allow churches to hold up to 3 different cars in their parking lot for a prolonged period of time if the circumstances in a community warranted that. There were requirements. They had to have access to a restroom. They had to have a hand washing station, and they had to have access to a garbage can. And for the first several months, everything was okay. But then over the course of time, other folks are showing up that we had not invited into our parking lot that think, hey, if this person's allowed to be there, why aren't I? What about me? And so we would have to tell them, no, you can't be here, you have to leave. And eventually some of the people who had mental health issues, in particular these two women, they started to trigger each other in these manic episodes. And that got kind of, that got pretty ugly. And so we decided that the best course of action in talking with the city was to be done with that, especially when we got into that lull in June of 2021. It made sense for us to be done with that. So anyway, we closed that. But what happened, there was a petition that got circulated within the community that we needed to not have any homeless people at all at the church. And when I say within the community, I mean the neighborhood. It's just, this area right here where we are. And so the 29 people signed that, and the city council saw that, and they said, oh my goodness, we have to respond. Well, by then we'd already responded. We already had agreed to terminate the car camping. The city council, figuring out how they can increase the safety of the neighborhood, they decided that limiting the feeding would make sense. Feeding people is core to how we practice our faith. It's core to our understanding what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Being told when we can feed, how we can feed, and then knowing full well that we'll be in violation. One way or another, we're going to be in violation. If we're feeding 2 days a week, we're going to be in violation of this ordinance one way or another.
Because the whole goal is for you to be placed in violation at some point, correct?
It's the conclusion that I come to.
Have you or anyone else had an opportunity to speak with the city council, the efforts that you have engaged in to try and ameliorate the concerns of the neighbors and the feeling that, gee, this kind of feels like we're being singled out?
So that's not the way the conversation went, unfortunately. At the very beginning of this whole dialogue with the city, because it happens during public meetings, but that it turned adversarial just right away. Like the very first time that I went and talked to City Council, it felt adversarial just right out of the gate. And I said, look, we don't want to be at odds with the city. Let's come up with solutions that meet everybody's needs, where we can all live with, compromise. They continue to move forward with this ordinance approach. And I told them, I said, that we're not into no ordinance. We'll fight that. We know what our rights are. We know what our constitutional rights are. And I don't know if they really took that seriously. It seems that they didn't, because they continued to push forward with restricting our rights. So certainly we've followed through with what we told them we were going to do, and we filed a federal lawsuit. So all told, there's 6 or 8 lawyers that are involved on our side of this thing, because a lot of people, there's a lot of lawyers that want to be part of this because they feel they don't want to see us lose our freedom of religion. So I appreciate that. Once we win, I want to get around it. I want to do the initial thing. What my initial intention was for all the stakeholders to sit around a table and talk through this. What are your concerns, and how can we live into what your concerns are? You're worried about theft. Well, let's come up with a strategy to minimize theft, or littering, for instance. You're worried that scary people are, in your neighborhood. Well, maybe if you meet them, they're not as scary as you think they are. Or maybe they really are scary. Well, let's figure out who that is, and let's make sure that the law enforcement people know about it, or whatever the concerns might be.
You were talking about the inability, at least currently, to be able to communicate with the city. Wasn't one of the members of the city council, or the mayor himself, wasn't he part of the feeding program here?
So the current mayor, for 9 years, he was the kitchen manager for our Tuesday meal, and did an extremely good job, because he was mayor then as well. He wasn't mayor for a period of time, but he had been mayor when he was the manager of our soup kitchen, and now he's mayor again. He's a great man as far as I'm concerned. He's in a difficult position because he's trying to figure out, well, what's the best way to keep a balance in our town so that everyone's safe. And I just so it's not, I don't disagree with the goal, I disagree with the approach of how to go about doing that. Our goals are the same. It's the approach that we disagree about. What I want to be is a church that is living out the teachings of Christ in the Gospels, and I want people to be drawn to that. I want people to be drawn to the idea that the hungry are being fed, the naked are being clothed, the thirsty are being given, coffee. The prisoners are being visited in prison. The sick are being healed. I mean, those things that you read about in the Gospels. It's like to come and see, and it's happening.
The full hour-long interview with Father Bernie Lindley can be found on KFUG's YouTube channel. So what comes next? The court dates are still unknown, with much hanging in the air until it progresses. If you wish to support St. Timothy's during this time, they're active on Facebook at St. Timothy's Episcopal Church, or username at St. Timothy Episcopal. If you'd like to contribute monetarily to the church's meal programs, they are accepting donations over PayPal on paypal.me/St. Timothy Episcopal. Remember, if you indicate that you're friends in the donation, you can avoid any unnecessary fees, because the church does consider you a friend. Additionally, if you could benefit from any of the provided programs, you can contact them at this page for more information. Remember, a community that communicates is one that lasts. When assistance for others gets slammed by those in power, the problems don't go away. Just one of the attempted solutions. It's important now more than ever to remember the practices of a healthy community, especially if it demands defiance against a governmental body acting to take rather than to add, regardless of if their intentions are well placed. For Redwood Voice, I'm Persephone Rose. Footage for this video was taken by myself, Grant Meriwether, Sebastian Monroe, and Monique Camarena, with additional footage coming from KFUG Community Radio. Additional audio recordings by Walker Chu Silver. Interviews conducted by KFUG's Mike Thornton and Paul Kretz. The intro for this piece includes audio from KFUG's coverage from Mike Thornton and Paul Kretz, the link to which is in the description. Additional audio sampled from KCIW Curry Coast Community Radio's report on this ongoing story, the link to which is in the description. Thanks for listening.